And, you know, I've been very open on this show. I didn't vote for Harris or Trump at all.
Yeah, neither did I.
Yeah, I can't vote for the war nutburgers. But the reality is now, and I want to talk about this. So with the election, the results of the election, Bitcoin price has spiked. It got close to 99, even crossed over 100 briefly on one exchange, but it didn't really stay there.
It was like, I think the average is 99.2 or something.
Yeah. It got very close to 100K, and now there's been a little bit of a pullback. Right now it's at about 92 or something like that, which is very, very typical for Bitcoin. And it's hilarious if people are like, oh God, it's down to 92,000. Like a month ago it was at 60, you know, like what are you talking about? It's such a funny thing. So I've seen like a lot of reasons why it's starting to spike and everything, but what do you see as somebody who pays attention to this? Why do you think we're in the 90s and we're destined to cross 100K within the next week or by the first of the year? I mean, how do you see this happen, or why is this happening?
Yeah. So first of all, I have said multiple times on your show, 100,000 Bitcoin, but long-term 1 million Bitcoin. And you were like, really? And I mean, you weren't skeptical. You weren't skeptical, but you were just like, oh, really, Rosie? Like, why do you think that? And I will say the same thing that I said back then, and with a little more insight as well. So first of all, as you know, listening to Max Kaiser, listening to Michael Saylor, listening to all these Bitcoin maxis, a lot of people and corporations and businesses and governments and things like that are looking at Bitcoin as a reserve option. So instead of having $30,000 in your bank account for operating capital, if you're like running like a cafe or something, taking $20,000 and putting it in Bitcoin and maybe having 10,000 for operating capital. And so people are looking at it, and like I said, corporations and businesses and possibly governments, as a play to preserve capital. And actually, the reason that Bitcoin is going up so much is a little bit sinister, and it's because of the massive inflation. So the government has been lying to us for the past 2 or 3 years, saying, oh, inflation's only 3%, inflation's only 5%, right? But anyone that goes to a grocery store, anyone that fills up their gas tank, anyone that's been outside their house and has a brain cell or two to rub together knows that inflation is not at 3 to 5%, Graham. Inflation has been more like 10%, 15%. And so these,
in some instances, 20%. I mean, literally, yes, in certain areas of the economy, it's 20 to 30%.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
When you gaslight,
people are not increasing their income that much.
No way. When you gaslight people by going, oh, the new jobs report and the inflation numbers, and people are like, what is that? That doesn't mean anything to me when I'm sitting there looking at my bank account going, like the price of my haircut just went from $30 to $35. And I was like, man, this woman's been cutting my hair. She's been doing a great job. Maybe I got to find a cheaper one. Doesn't exist. And this is not $40 worth of hair, Rosie. There's not a lot of labor to do right here. This is like a bing, bang, boom. We're out,
So the first reason Bitcoin is going up is actually, like I said, very sinister. And that's because the Fed was printing during COVID and not really taking time. So basically what happened was, obviously a global pandemic happened and it was terrible, but the government didn't sit down and really think about what they were doing. They were just like, we can't let the economy crash. Let's just print a bunch of money. And so by doing that, they caused massive, massive inflation. And then in the past 2 years, they were trying to curb that inflation by jacking interest rates up to 7 or 8%. But it doesn't matter because the damage was already done. So part of Bitcoin going up so high is actually sinister. And that reason is because people want to preserve their capital. If you're getting paid $50,000 a year and your grocery bills, your hospital bills, all of your bills have gone up 20 to 30%, and you've gotten a 2% raise, which is the average raise in America. In fact, less than 2% is the average raise in America. You're like, how do I preserve my money so I can actually not be homeless? And so that's where Bitcoin comes in. And that's the first reason it's going up so much. And I really think it's going to go up even further. The second reason is obviously, Trump and Elon are saying that they're a pro-crypto, pro-friendly, Trump went to the Bitcoin conference. He spoke at the Bitcoin conference. Kamala was invited. She didn't want to go for whatever reason. She decided not to go. And I think that was a huge mistake. And they were saying that during, the election campaigning. They were saying, is crypto, are crypto people going to be like the deciding factor? And I think that a lot of people are very pro crypto and are really believe in it and are very, very anti-government. 40% of Americans are independents, Graham, are not registered with any party. Half of Americans did not vote in this election. So people are very disillusioned with the system. You're not the only person that's, disillusioned with the two-party system. I did not vote for either mainstream party. People are not happy with, genocide and lying about inflation and all sorts of like crazy stuff that's happening. And so Bitcoin and crypto in general is that kind of like silent protest. It's go on.
Yeah, and I want to say to give even more data to back up the point that you're making. It wasn't just Trump. And again, like Harris not going to the conference, Harris not going on Joe Rogan. That was whatever you think of Bitcoin, whatever you think of Joe Rogan, and there's plenty of criticisms to have about Joe Rogan. That was a mistake to not go and push your policy, but also to back your point up here. So I follow this. I forget the name of it. It's like a crypto newsletter, and they just were a crypto advocacy group leading up to the election. And they showed the majority of pro-crypto people running for office in the House and the Senate, and obviously the White House, won. And anti-crypto, by and large, got voted out. So it wasn't just like, it wasn't just the Trump thing. It wasn't just that it was like you say, the crypto. And if 40% of this country calls themselves independents, as you and I do, and I think a lot of people in the crypto space are like, I don't want to be a part of any of this. I think there's a lot of factors. I think that it's funding the genocide. I think it's not addressing working, the inflation and all that. But crypto is a part of that. I mean, crypto factors into a lot of, not everybody, but a lot of crypto, and specifically Bitcoin people that I've met, the Bitcoin
are very anti-establishment. Yeah.
They're anti-war, they're anti-big bank, they're anti, and they want legit like some type of regulation that doesn't force the CBDCs down our throat, and like doesn't going to make Bitcoin illegal. So I think you're right. I think this sort of quiet, one of the quiet factors is this because all of these
crypto revolution.
It is.
It is. And so it's not about making it illegal also. So if you looked at the legislation that was being pushed, again, I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it was also very, very sinister because Gary Gensler and his cronies weren't trying to make crypto and Bitcoin illegal. They were trying to make crypto and Bitcoin more difficult to access if you were a poor and middle class person. So they were pushing all these accredited investor, and they're saying, oh, we're protecting the investors, we're protecting the little guy. And I don't know if you know much about accredited investor rules, but basically you have to have $1 million net worth to invest. That is what the accredited investor accreditation means. It means that if you want to invest in something, and so a lot of private equity is accredited investor. So if you want to get in on the Facebooks before they turn into Facebook and the Instagrams before they turn to Instagram, you have to be super, 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 super rich. And everyone knows like that's not fair, right? Because why should, this billionaire have a chance to invest in an early stage startup and I don't? Yet, Graham, I'm allowed to go buy a lottery ticket and gamble my life savings away. I'm allowed to go to the casino. There's no protection of that. Yet there's a protection of me getting into Bitcoin. Why do I need to be protected from Bitcoin, but not, buying lottery tickets?
Or to add to that real quick, I mean, I watch a fair amount of sports, and in the last 5 years, it's gambling nonstop. There's FanDuel, ESPN's got a gambling app. Everybody, MGM Sports, every sporting event now, you can get on your phone and gamble the shit out of anything. And it's like, I've watched some psychologists put some, like there's going to be a crisis because gambling addiction has a higher rate of suicide and every time a state legalizes gambling, bankruptcies go through the roof. And now that you can just gamble on anything, I almost did it watching that stupid Tyson Jake Paul fight. I'm like, and then I was like, what am I doing? This is so stupid, So like you say, there's no restriction on regular people just pissing their money away on this, but they got to protect us from Bitcoin. But go ahead. Sorry.
But again, the protection is, only billionaires and millionaires can do it. I'm like, that doesn't sound like you're protecting me. It's under the guise of protection. And that's one of the reasons I was so angry and anti-Gary Gensler, is that all of his protections against crypto were saying, only rich people can do it. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a protection. That doesn't sound like you're protecting me. It sounds like you're rigging the game so that only rich people can play the game. And so that's something that was very upsetting to me, because the point of Bitcoin, the point of crypto, is that it's decentralized. It's for the little guy. It was created by a group of, maybe Satoshi is one person, maybe it's a group. Most people have guesstimated that it may be a group of programmers, but that it was created in as a protest against what happened in 2008, 2009, as a protest for the bailouts of the big banks. So it was a protest against all that government corruption and that, bailing out so that the millionaires and billionaires always win. And so that's what's so awesome about all these little guys and gals getting into crypto and Bitcoin, and then BlackRock and all these people getting in after us, because it's like, hey, we knew before you guys. We were into it and you guys didn't take us seriously, and now you're going to have to pay $100,000 Bitcoin. But I still think it's going up even more, because people are looking at it for countries. You've been to El Salvador. There's other countries that are slowly falling. The dominoes are slowly falling, and other countries are following suit, and they are thinking about, hey, maybe we should buy some Bitcoin as part of our reserve as well. And so there's only a few countries doing it now. We still have hundreds of countries to join. We still have dozens of people that don't even know what Bitcoin and crypto is. So, I mean, it's inevitable that it's just going to keep going up. And I know that just sounds crazy to the average person. Like, well, that sounds like a Ponzi scheme, but it's not, because if you look at the stock market has historically always gone up. It doesn't mean that something is a scam or a scheme because it always goes up. It just means there's a limited supply, and Bitcoin is that limited supply, 21 million. So,
well, yeah. And I think, one of the things I've been trying to screaming on this channel, and I've had some of my audience go, oh, enough with the Bitcoin. I'm like, I've been telling you guys, because the institutional people have woken up in the last 4 years. Even the big money people, they understand there's only going to be ever 21 million of these. And they're like, they're going to do what rich people always do. I want to own as much of it as I possibly can. I mean, so that's why I was like, this is the only opportunity regular people have to own something that is going to 10x in your 20x, 100x in your lifetime. I mean, look, Bitcoin has 5x'd in 2 years. When it had the crash after FTX and went below 20K, it was like 19K and was staying at around 19, 20K for months. And then it's 5x'd. I mean, basically it's 5x'd. So you there's no other asset out there that's performing like this. So